Welcome to First Glance with Jody, Vance. Again, the series continues with the guru himself. Chris Parry is with us to lend us your big brain. Frankly, you've got big brain ideas, big ways to maybe even simplify by working smarter. And we want to talk about one of those sort of subject lines here specific to CEOs, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so today I wanted to sort of touch on, we're heading into investor conference season, something we haven't had for a few years because of COVID. But when the investor conferences begin, a lot of my pet peeves with the public markets suddenly start breaking into view. And one which I'm a real enemy of is the terrible PowerPoint presentation. Have we not all sat through these terrible things where someone's like, okay, so here's my 30-page presentation with behind me here is a wall of words that I'm either going to just repeat as you're reading them because I have no imagination, or I'm going to say something completely different and have you choose whether you listen to me or read the words behind me, or look at this chart which you're going to have to spend 20 seconds comprehending, or this map of geological surveys that you're not going to be able to make head nor tail of. Like, I just hate it. I go into these investor conferences, I usually do a keynote or two, and mine will be like, a title like the infamous 5 of you guys will be dead by this time next year, so we better get some new guys in, or you guys think that kids don't like mining, but they're all playing Minecraft at home, or everybody out there is lying to you, or generally my presentations are like, hey everybody, come in here and sit down. And I'll fill the room easy peasy because I'm swearing and I'm throwing elbows and I'm calling guys douchebags. And then the next
That's my favorite thing about you, I gotta say. Whenever I'm reading one of your newsletters and I see where you're getting at, and I see what you're covering, and I'm no expert on what you write about, but I learn from you every time. There's at least, and that goes back to your journalistic days, frankly, Chris. I mean, that goes back to you being an investigative journalist. It doesn't really matter the subject. It's that you find the thing that people need to know. And oftentimes that word salad behind you on a PowerPoint, I mean, can it be offered up with rubber chicken? Because that will absolutely ensure that I'm sound asleep by the end of it. It's madness. But the engagement piece is everybody thinks they're a broadcaster now. Everybody thinks they're an investigative journalist now. Everybody thinks that, their presentation is what it was. Like, the 90s are gone.
Thank God, quite frankly, because none of us really achieved much in the 90s, did we?
No.
Anyway, I didn't.
At least in the 80s, we had interesting hair.
Interesting would be one way to say it.
Right. I was, Ice Miss
Mine was still great in the 80s.
Was it?
On the sides when I was 18.
Oh my God, I love that about you.
Yeah.
So what do we do instead in lieu of the, how does one CEO find the fearlessness, I guess, to do all of the things that seem to come so easily to you? Do they not come easily to you? Are you risky and you think, okay, here I go?
So generally speaking, these guys come in after me swearing and telling jokes and doing my comedy routine. And they're like, all right, so here's my 40-page investor deck with like tiny little font and, cramming as much information. And it's exactly the same deck that they've got on their website, right? On your website, you want people to read. So you want all the information you can get in there. And although you want to sort of chop it up a little bit, make it easy to digest, there's a reason to have all that info. But if you're actually presenting it, you got to use a completely different presentation because you are the presentation, right? So The first thing you need is to make sure that the people who are paying attention to you believe in you, right? So it's not about I'm putting on the suit that I wear at every broker's meeting, and it's about like, who are you? What's your origin story? How did you get into this company? Before you start telling me about yield and, debt to earnings, and tell me like what got you here? What's different about this company from everyone else? Why are you particularly interested in this company as opposed to all the others? And get me hooked in some way. So I often tell the story of a mining guy who sat down with me and he's pitching his magnesium mine, and it's boring as hell. And about 10 minutes in, I noticed that his cap is all covered in dirt. And so I said to him, what's the story with your dusty cap? And he's like, oh, I was just on the side of the mountain making sure that the guys doing the drilling weren't wasting all my money. And I was like, instantly, now I'm interested, like, because you're not out playing golf, you're out hanging off the side of a rock face somewhere to save some cash, to just make sure everything's. So, all right, what happened when you got there? Oh, it was a funny story. The guys all wanted to go to town and get trailers. And I said, why do we need trailers? You're just wasting my cash. We've got tents. Let's just sit in tents. And they all laughed at me and drove off. And so I'm sitting there reading a book in my tent with my dog. And all of a sudden, the side of the tent's coming in. And I realize there's a bear outside. So I hit the zip and I'm Scooby-Dooing it down the side of the hill like the cheese roll. And I tumble down and I get to the bottom of the mountain and I watch the bear stomping on my stuff for a little bit and then it wanders off. And by the time I climb back up the mountain, the guys turn up with their trailers and look what's happened here. And they're like, so do you want another trailer? And I was like, this is a great story. You should open every investor presentation with this story because you've just told me several things. One, attention to detail, you got it. You're right there making sure everything's happening. Two, you're not blowing through my money. Three, you're actually there at the cliff face. You're interested in this stuff. You're not just a market CEO. So suddenly I'm interested in this guy's deal.
I also like the fact, if I may interject, I love that story so much. I love the fact that he's okay with being wrong.
Yeah, right. And like, it comes back to the city and the first thing he does isn't like take a shower. It's sit down with a journalist and talk about his deal.
Yeah.
So, that guy turned out to be an utter scumbag in the end.
No shit.
But before it was revealed that he was an utter scumbag.
I wanted my Hollywood ending, Chris.
That's kind of the Hollywood. That's the indie ending right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
People in the know probably know exactly who I'm talking about. But the point of it is you have my attention because you've got an origin story. Now, in your presentation at the investor conference, I'm not saying you need to show up in a dusty cap, but I am saying that you need to have a reason for people who just listen to me calling cannabis CEOs dirtbags. You need to have a reason for them to stick around and listen to you. And if all you're doing is being like, okay, so here's my logo, click. 5 things about this market that you didn't know, like, you're done.
You're done.
You've almost got to have a comedy routine going, right? You got to have a strong 5 where people are going to sit down and go, okay, sure, I'll go to the next page. And as a journalist, when you're writing a report on a company, this is the thing that is foremost in your mind, right? Same with you as an interviewer. You don't just want to get through 20 minutes because people will change the channel. You can't just get through 2,000 words because people will go to another website. You need to have every paragraph be a reason to not just stick around, but to get to the next paragraph. Here's our origin story, and it's great because here's what we're doing on the ground right now that's different from everybody else. And that's great because if you start telling me, well, this is a $5 billion industry, and if we just get 1%, give me a break, that's like saying to me, in 2023, I project that Charlize Theron will want to get married to me. I'm projecting that currently. It might
she hasn't shown up yet. Yeah, it could.
It's like, when governments say we're going to cure cancer by 2050, like, well, good luck with that.
Universal child care.
Yeah, you're not going to be here when that happens, but good for you for like setting up guys 5 generations away from us. So, all in all, you really just have to have that, we'll call it a tight 5. It's like, why am I interested in you as a person? And if you can get me over that hurdle, okay, now why am I interested in your particular company? And then when we get over that hurdle, tell me more about the sector itself and where you fit within that. And if you can do that, you can keep those people in the room and get more people along the way, right? Because with those investor conferences, people like me, we walk around again and again, we do laps. And where we stop is where other people have stopped. And where we stop is when we look at the screen and we see something over the guy's shoulder that grabs our attention. If you've got nothing, then you've really got to step back and think about your actual company and say, is this as good a company as I think it is? Right? If there's nothing that differentiates me from the other 50 guys waiting to come on,
why would I stop?
Pay attention.
Right. So go back. You and I have had so many conversations similar to this, and you've told the story about stopping at one booth and why, like the same, and then suddenly different.
Right.
Explain that different again.
Yeah, so like anyone who's been to an investor conference and walked down an aisle has seen, especially in the mining companies, you see 20 tables, none of which have any sort of different skirt on the front of them, all of which have a map on the back and a picture of a guy with a reflective vest on a truck. 90% of the time, the truck doesn't actually belong to the company. It's like what we're going to have one day. So it's really just map, 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 map. Now, if I stop and I actually talk and I give you 20 minutes of my time and you decipher the map for me, maybe I'll be interested. But why am I going to stop? What is on that back wall that makes me want to stop, right? I remember I talked to a guy who used to be in the online gambling world, and he went to a conference in Vegas about online gambling back in the Bodog days. And he said that it was action packed to try and get people to stop, right? You had to do different things, better things, bigger things. And he said the greatest one he ever saw was a 2-story booth that actually brought the carpenters in and built a second story on this booth, put a double bed on top of it, and then staffed it with 4 lingerie models with pillows. And if you dropped your business card in their bowl, you could have a 5-minute pillow fight with the girls.
No way.
Well, they had a 2-hour wait. Now, I'm not saying that that's, ethical.
That is so uncouth. Yeah.
But in terms of thinking outside the box, you don't have to go to that level. But go to a level. Go to more than just like, here is my little slide thing that I just got printed up, and here is the backdrop that we take to every, like, I had a young analyst that I took to a mining conference a couple of years ago, and we stopped at a company that I always name because screw them, called White Gold. And they had one of their drill cores on the table. And so our guy, who's a young business analyst, an economist, stops at the table and says to the guy there, like, what am I looking at? Tell me what this core signifies. And the guy said, well, real investors know. And he was like, well, I'm a real investor. I have cash. Explain to me what I'm supposed to be seeing here. Like, why is this different from the next guy? And the guy just looked at him and just said, you're not our investor. And that was it. And like, you're at an investor conference. Like, you've come to tell your story, to share why you're great. You don't know if this guy's got $1 million in his pocket to spend. You don't know if he's a billionaire. You just know that he's young and he's asking you a question that will require you to say, okay, well, let me explain to you, right? Yeah. And that much effort was too much effort for the folks at White Gold to make. Now, maybe it's a great company. Maybe they've got a great property. Maybe they don't need investors. But why are you at an investor conference if you're not prepared to just say to somebody, let me turn you into a mining investor by explaining a little bit of geo to you right here while you're asking the question, while you've actually stopped, So,
and maybe some of the flood of people that are rolling by that same table in that moment hear that explanation begin and pause. And nothing is greater than garnering attention, because that brings more people. More come to the yard as soon as they're like, oh, what's everybody looking at over here? I better come and see what's happening over there at that booth. Oh, I better write down that booth,
Yeah, you got to have a bit of a carny about you, Like,
yeah, for sure.
Glad you stopped by. So many people don't bother. Now that you're here, I'm going to explain some things to you. I'm going to give you a little bit of education so that when you get to the next booth and you see it's less sparkly than our core, then you'll come back to our booth and take our ticket symbol down. Like, giving someone something to take home doesn't mean necessarily, a plastic water bottle with your logo on it. It means a little bit of education. Yeah. I've sat at these investor booths and had conversations that go 40 minutes. And it's not that I'm necessarily going to buy the stock afterwards, but I'm going to remember that company. Yeah. And when that company shows it's done a few things, I'm going to feel a lot better about being engaged with them, as opposed to the guys at White Gold, who I have ripped from pillar to post. I've told that negative story so many times that it comes back to haunt them on a repetitive basis. Maybe they don't care, but they should, because you don't know who you're talking to. You don't know if the guy you're talking to or the girl you're talking to, the young person you're talking to, or the guy in a Zimmer frame has $1 million that they're really looking to allocate to your sector. And if they really believe in you, I can't tell you how many times I've talked to a CEO at one of these things and said to myself, this girl, she knows what's up. I'm going to go home. I'm going to invest 20 grand in this stock. And with a micro cap, with a small company, you only need 3 or 4 of those people doing a $10,000 purchase on a day to have a really good day.
Really good day. And you never know, like you say, that you never know, the angel investor could be just out of earshot. And so why not put your very best 5 forward every time? Like every time. Have it so drilled down that you've got to, right? See what I did? It's just sparkly for, it's all my money jokes coming together as we get set for the season. I think what you say is so relevant though, Chris. In my experience, there's so many things that can be aligned when it comes to industry. For me, I was a community cruiser driver. So I was always at the home show, the boat show, the motorcycle show, the fill in the blank show. I was at one of those booths trying to hand out the stickers to the radio station or get somebody engaged to talk about classic rock. I mean, what can I tell you about Mick Jagger that you don't already know if you love him already? I'll find a way, or I'll get you to enter to win the ticket to the thing that actually means something. Like you say, the takeaway water bottle oftentimes lands in the trash bin if it's not got something to it. I mean, walking away with just something to give away no longer counts anymore. There was a time where a sticker from a radio station was a huge deal, evolve and change. Yeah.
Look, I honestly, the thing that this guy at White Gold didn't get is he was talking to a journalist, and that journalist, if he'd been into what the answer was of this question, would have gone home and written a post on our website and told people, you know what, there's a really interesting thing here. And that would have gone to 5 other people.
Right.
One investor who comes in and just puts $500 down has a dad and a mom and a grandma and a dentist and a group of friends. Especially the younger investors are much more likely to go out to Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, blah, 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 and say, hey, I put $500 down on this stock and I've doubled my money. They're much more likely to share with their community than an older investor is, right? The older investors, they're all about just like, how do I squeeze the last value out of the remaining dollars that I have in my account because I can't go back to work and make more. The younger investors can lose their money and go make more money and try again, right? It's a much better market to go after because it's a repeat market. And if you make a friend of that investor and get their group to now be part of your investment portfolio, this thing can expand wildly. I've seen many companies where, the CEO gets out there and does YouTube videos every week and updates people on what they're doing. And the information is sometimes really vague and maybe even a little bit promo-y. But the fact that they're actually talking is the connection, right? It's a conversation that's being had. It's not. So as you can see on page 23 of my deck. Yeah.
That's available on our website at www. I mean, you can stop doing the W's, guys. Right. Just a thing. It's a tell. You know what? I got to tell you, we got to go. But there are more of these. If you click, click down below? The website's new. Where are we clicking for more, Chris? More Chris Parry to come here on Equity Guru, of course, First Glance with Jody Vance. I think the next one up, if we're just rolling through these videos for you, I think we're going to talk about how you tell your story. We're going to get to that one as we do our weekly check-in with Chris Parry, the guru at Equity Guru. We'll be back.